To be able to draft our suit, coats, or blazers pattern, we first would have to get our measurement. So these are the measurements you see displayed on your screen. Let me explain a little bit. The shoulder to shoulder or the back measurement is 16 and a half. You see the chest to be 38, waist 34, hip 38. The length is also 28. But then for the suit purpose, we are going to take 6 inches off the chest, the waist, and the hip measurement. And so the chest is going to be 32 instead of 38. The waist or the tummy is going to be 28 instead of the 34. And we're also doing 32 instead of the 38 hip. Next, we would also go ahead and then do a back measurement, which is also a bit separate from the regular chest measurement, the waist and the hip that we have. What you do is that for the chest and the waist, you will divide whatever measurement you have by 2, and then you take 2 inches off. And so 32 divided by 2 gives us 16, minus 2 will give us 14. That is for the back. Also, 28 divided by 2 gives us 14, minus 2 will then give us 12. When it gets to the hip measurement, we will divide the hip measurement by 2 to get 16, and then we subtract 3 inches instead of the 2 we did for the waist and the chest. And so we're going to get 13 inches. We would maintain the length and would also maintain the shoulder to shoulder, which is 16 and a half. We first draw a border line here and also our starting line. We will mark 3.5 inches on this line. Then we mark 1 inch downwards. From this line, we mark 10 inches, 17 inches, and 28 inches. Then we move upwards from this line by 2.25 inches. On the top line here, we are going to divide our shoulder to shoulder measurement into 2. So the shoulder to shoulder is 16 and a half. Divided by 2 gives us 8.25. Then we move downwards by 3/4 inch. At this point, we are going to move backwards by 3/8 inch. Then we square that line all the way till it touches the 2.25 we came upward by. Then from this very point, we move 3/8 inch also away from the line. With a French curve, we are going to join this point all the way to this line. And also we join the point at the top here to this line. Then we connect the neck width to the shoulder slope here. We are to take 1 inch from the hip line, 1 inch from the waistline, 1/2 inch from this side, 1/4 inch from that side. Then we draw a line to connect them. Next, we are going to divide the back chest measurement into 2. So the back chest measurement is 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. The back waist was 12 divided by 2 gives us 6 inches. Then the back hip measurement is 13 divided by 2 gives us 6.5. Now we connect these 3 points and also to the side. We also take our neck hole. We are going to add our seam allowance to it and then we cut it. Next, mark a point 1 inch away from the seam allowance here. And with the same measurement, mark the same point on the hip line. We'll go ahead and cut the back pattern. Next, we are going to trace these lines onto this part to get our side panel. Then we mark 6 inches from here and there. Then we take off 1 inch. We have to take half of an inch from the top here and also from the waist. Then we'll mark half of an inch from this side also backwards. Down here, we take off 1/4 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch. Then we mark 5 inches upwards. We are going to connect this point to that and also to this, and repeat same for the other side. We are going to extend these lines further. We mark half of the shoulder to shoulder measurement. This is 8 1/4, and then we draw a line to connect these 2 points. Next, we'll measure the distance from the neck depth here all the way to the arm depth. This is 7 3/4. We would mark 7 3/4 from this point upwards. Then we square this. Mark 1 1/4 away from this point. We divide this into 2 to get the midpoint. We do the same for the center front as well. Then we measure 1 1/2 away from the center front point. We will start from this point and mark all the way backwards the same 8 1/4 which was used as our shoulder to shoulder measurement. Then we draw a line to start from this point through this line till it touches this line we have on the top here. We would also divide this into two. That is the 8 and quarter mark we have here. We'll divide it into two. Then we square this as well. From this point, we would move upwards by 1/4 inch. And then from that point, mark 2 inches downwards. We would also extend this line and then measure 2 inches downwards to touch the 1.5 mark we had here. Then away from this point, we mark 1/4 inch. Then we draw a curve to start from this point and to touch the 1/4 inch extension. Then we draw a line to connect this to that point. On this very line, we mark 2 inches downwards. From this point all the way to this line, we'll place the back pattern on and mark the shoulder length. Then we join this to that using an inward curve. From this point, we would also mark our front armhole. We will lift this upward by about 1/4 inch. Then starting from there to this point and all the way to the upper point here, we'll draw an armhole. From the center front at the waistline, we would mark 4 inches backwards. Then we mark 5/8. At the center of the 5/8, we would draw a line upwards. From the bottom here, we are marking 1/4 inch, and they would mark 3/8 inch here as well. Then we draw a line to connect these 2 points. From this part, we would mark 8.5 inches, then 8.5 inches. Then we draw a line to connect these 2 points. We extend this line till it touches the new line we drew. Then we mark the 5/8 as we had here on both sides. We draw our dart to touch this 2 points all the way to where this intersects. Then we mark 1/2 inch. That will be the starting point of our pocket. Then we also mark 1/2 inches downwards. For the breast pocket, we would mark 1.5 inches away from the center front line. Then 4.5 inches. We mark 1/2 inch from here downwards. We draw a line to connect from the 1/2 all the way to this line. Then we mark 7/8 inch downwards. From the waistline, we mark 3/4 inch, and we do same for the hip line. Then we do 3/4 inch from the waistline upwards. We'd also mark 3/8 of an inch from the same point upwards. We'll mark 3/4 of an inch from this neckline up towards the center front line. And we'll draw a line from that point all the way to this very mark. So we draw a line to connect this point also to the point up here. Remember, this is our lapel, and so the design would all depend on you. On the hip line, we'll measure 3/4 of an inch backwards. Then we draw a curve to touch the 3/4 and also to give us the roundness at the base here. Next, because we are going to take 5/8 of an inch as that from this very part, we would have to add that to our measurement here so that we don't fall short. We will then add our seam allowance to this and then we cut. Lest I forget, this would be the first buttonhole. We need to mark the second buttonhole, and that will fall 4.5 inches below the very first one. And then these lines would also be extended to meet the cut. This will make it easier for us to notch and also to stitch. We are done. This is our back pattern. This is the side pattern and that is the front. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also share with us your comments and your questions.